Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I am, of course, your host, Armando Venditti, and I have a very special guest today, Mr. Ryan Gavalier.
Hey,
How's it
how's it
going?
going? Oh, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great for a balmy Thursday morning in Edmonton. It's going to be 30 degrees Celsius here. It is bloody hot. We've got a heat warning going on, but
Yeah,
I'm going to go outside and get sunburned because I've been inside for almost 2 weeks, and today I'm busting out. Um,
sweet.
West Edmonton Mall, watch out. Anyways, um, ladies and gentlemen, before we started taping, we came up with a fantastic idea. Um, I have always said that when you think you know everything there is to know about music, you're pretty much done. And for me, music is about discovery. It's about going down new paths, new avenues, new ideas to explore. And you know what? This episode is just about that. Okay. Today's topic, today's artist in particular is one Mr. Brian Eno. Now, Brian Eno, you all know, or if you don't know, a writer, arranger, producer, has worked with tons of groups, namely U2, was worked with Daniel Lanois, worked with David Bowie, especially. You also may know if you've been living in a cave for the last X amount of years, you might also know that he was once a member of Roxy Music. Okay, Brian Eno has a plethora of albums to explore, and that's what we're doing in this episode. Okay, we were going to start out talking about one particular album called Apollo, okay, which he recorded in 1983 with his brother Roger, and Daniel Lanois. But prior to recording this, we decided that we were going to expand the topic and talk about his vast catalog that Ryan has showed me before we started taping this. So I'm going to hand it over to Ryan, and he's going to start talking about what Brian Eno means to him and his musical output. So take it away, Ryan.
All right, thanks, Armando. Yeah, I mean, for me, I could talk about Brian Eno all day because he's such a huge influence on me. As like a musician, as a producer, and just as a music listener too, and also just a thinker in general, because he just has like such interesting philosophies on how to be creative and such, whether it's with his cards or it's just like in what he's done in his writing or his
Yeah,
artwork and
yeah,
stuff. He's just an awesome dude. And I've been listening to him for quite a while. I wouldn't say I've heard like every single album that he's made because there's such a huge catalog.
yeah.
I actually just checked out his new singles that he put out. It's called The Writing Bells. It was pretty good. It's not my favorite work by him, but I thought it was really solid still. But yeah, he's done so much different stuff, whether it's producing for groups um like Talking Heads or working with Bowie or
Mm-hmm.
being part of Roxy Music, etc. U2, Coldplay. Um, I mean, there's just
Coldplay,
been
you see. See, I
yeah,
didn't
there's
know that. I didn't know that you work with Coldplay. So,
yeah,
yeah.
he did like Viva La Vida and some of their other albums too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
so he's super amazing and talented. And I mean, he's not even like a classically trained musician. He actually considers himself like a non-musician.
I've
Which
heard
is
of
kind
that.
of yeah, which is kind of inspirational to me. Um, because even though I have some classical training, like mildly, I consider myself someone who likes to use instruments in different ways too. And I like to make soundscapes and I like the production side. And then,
Yeah.
but, but Brian always keeps a melody in what he's doing and a musicality. So even though he considers himself a non-musician, there's still a musicality of what he's doing. And I've always kind of kept that in mind too. I just think he's a really good creative guide and like someone to look up to and like um just whatever he's doing, he's always nailed it. And so
Just
yeah, I
a
mean,
just a quick question. With all the production work that he's done and the albums he's released, do you think that maybe he's still an artist that's maybe gone under the radar a little, like underappreciated or
I don't think so, honestly. I mean,
mm,
maybe some of his solo work, but I mean, I
yeah,
think he's very much like an esteemed music figure. I mean, he's won tons of awards. People write
yeah.
about him all day. Like, I think he's doing just fine. Um,
Mhm.
and I think he's honestly probably like the celebrity of like ambient music. Like if you know ambient music, you know Brian Eno. I mean, he
Yeah.
coined the term essentially. And if you
Okay.
know art rock, you probably know Brian Eno too. So for me,
Okay.
no, I don't think he's under the radar at all. I think his fame is completely where it needs to be. Um,
That's perfect. Yeah, that's a good description. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
I think he's not going to be for like every mainstream listener. Like if you're out listening to like Motley Crue, you're probably not going to give a shit about Brian Eno.
Yeah, if you're a headbanger, yeah.
Like, yeah, but
Yeah.
like, I think if this is like your jam, then you probably know him or you would probably love him.
Or if you're one like us that like to listen to different musical genres just to give, just to try something new, you'll probably come across him at some point.
Definitely, I agree.
Okay. All right. So if you want to show us some of those albums that you've got, because you've got like a shitload basically of albums.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a decent amount here. Um, actually, so I didn't grab them from my stack, but obviously the first two Roxy music albums
Yeah.
are absolute classics, especially the second one. I think that's my favorite Roxy music. For Your Pleasure, I think it's called.
Is that the one with the woman on the cover, or
They all have women on the cover.
but the one where she's in blue and like she's got like a she's
No,
sort of laying like
that's a debut.
okay, that's the debut. Sorry. Okay, there you go. See, I'm stuff I don't know. So
Yeah. No, the second one I think is my favorite Roxy music album, but obviously his synth parts were so influential at that time because those
mhm.
albums were coming out like 72, 73.
3, yeah,
And just his overall persona, because he had like an extremely like androgynous persona too. He
yeah,
was kind of wild, he was like a womanizer and stuff. Like he was like very much like the rock star of like the art rock world at the time,
yeah.
but he was also just so damn talented.
Hmm.
And um, I think you could see that right away. And then 1973 was a pretty great year in the world of Brian Eno. Um, with these two albums that got released, you've got Here Come the Warm Jets, which is
Okay,
his first solo album, and
okay.
then No Pussyfooting, which was a collaboration album with Robert Fripp,
Fripp. Yeah.
who is one of my favorite guitar players of all time. And he's also on Here Comes the Warm Jets too, throwing down
Okay.
some of the best guitar solos you'll ever hear, like on songs like Babies on Fire. Um,
Yeah, and it's got to be said too. It was and Bowie that got Fripp to come out of semi-retirement or retirement. to come play on the Heroes album.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so yeah, okay, no, that's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, the part of like what appealed to me about this album in particular, Here Come the Warm Jets, is just like right off the bat, you can tell that is going to have like a lot of people playing on his albums. Like you've got like Andy McKay, you got Robert Fripp, Phil Manzanera,
Yeah.
Bill McCormick, you've got John Wetton.
Oh my goodness. Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and that's just on the first album. As you go further on, and there's like even more big names that he was
Yeah.
getting, and they're just all amazing musicians. And so for me, that was kind of influential. Like growing up, starting to get really into instruments myself and music and wanting to collaborate with people and stuff, was just seeing like Brian being able to bring people in and have them actually fit the songs, not just doing it to do it, but like if they actually really had something to contribute. And I guess that was kind of always a rule that I've had for myself too, not to just collaborate to collaborate, but the
Yeah.
songwriting is just weird on this album. It's a mix of like glam rock, art rock, um, I guess like some more like psychedelic type of stuff. At
Yeah.
times, Here Come the Warm Jets is kind of like the first like shoegaze type of song with its tones. It's pretty nuts.
Okay.
Um, like I said, my favorite is probably Babies on Fire on here. Um, I also love Needle and the Camel's Eye. That's like one of the greatest glam rock songs of all time. You can't It's so hard to not like drive like 100 miles per hour with the volume all the way up to that
Okay.
song. It's so
Okay.
good. Um, Dead Finks Don't Talk is absolutely chilling. That's one of the weirdest songs ever recorded.
That
On
sounds
some,
like something the Tubes would record back in the early 70s or something like
yeah,
that title, like White Punks on Dope or something like that, like from the Tubes. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that's cool.
definitely. I think On Some Faraway Beach is an absolutely beautiful song. So is Cindy Tells Me. Like just so much good stuff on that album. It's an experimental masterpiece. And
Yeah.
then this one's one of the greatest ambient albums of all time. It's really just Fripp on his guitar and then um doing like synthesizers and like tape tricks and stuff. And it just
It,
is the greatest soundscapes of all time. It's just two sidelong tracks. And it's absolutely haunting to listen to. So I would definitely recommend that. It's extremely influential to me too.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and then like
Yeah.
after that, oh, what's up?
Sorry. I would no, I was just gonna say haunting is the one word that I would use to describe some of the stuff that appears on on this one on Apollo.
Yeah,
Very, yeah, haunting is a good word for it. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll get into this in a minute. Believe me, it is good. Carry on.
definitely.
Sorry, carry on.
Um, so then after that, you got Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy, which is another amazing album. I don't like it quite as much as I like Here Come the Warm Jets, but it has moments on it that are
Mhm.
like even better. And I think just as a whole, it's just a classic album still. I mean, you have a song like Third Uncle on here. That song sounds like the birth of post punk. And this album was made in 74. So it was post punk before punk was even made. But it
Yeah.
just literally sounds like the stuff that would be coming out in like 79, 80. It's absolutely amazing.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, the title track is fantastic on here. Um, just pretty much everything on here is absolutely weird. And I actually think he ups the weirdness on this album overall. I mean, and you have a ton more musicians. Like I said, you got like Phil Manzanera again, Robert Wyatt, who I love, Simplistics, um, Andy McKay, Phil Collins, um, let's see.
Yeah,
That
it's
looks
got to
like,
be said too that Phil Montaneric was with him in Roxy Music.
yes. And so is Andy McKay.
Andy McKay, yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
Phil Collins said that. There's a quick story about that. Phil Collins said, I don't know if it was for this album, but it must have been because um, Genesis were working on The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So they were working on it, and Brian Eno came in to do some work with them on the album. So then, as a favor in return, Peter Gabriel said to said to Phil Collins, "You're going upstairs to work with Brian Eno. You know, you're gonna do me, you're gonna help me return a favor back to Brian Eno." So Phil Collins jokingly said, it felt like he was being pimped out, like Peppa to
Yeah.
Brian Eno to work on the album, right? So he's like, and we became good friends after that. So he says, but I did feel kind of cheap, kind of pimped out. The fact
Definitely.
that I was put on given to Brian Eno on loan, you know. So so yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah,
definitely.
that's cool.
Um, and let's see here. So another one that's absolutely key from his solo careers, Another Green World.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, this
Yeah.
is probably my favorite of his vocal albums. It's an absolute masterpiece. Once again, tons of good musicians on here. You got Phil Collins, you got John Cale, um, Percy Jones,
Oh,
Robert
cool.
Fripp. Um, let's
Percy
see
Jones from
here.
Brand X. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you've got um, let's see here. Ian McDonald.
Ooh, from King Crimson. Okay, that's cool.
Oh, he got a special thanks.
Mm,
So he might add something involved, but
cool.
um,
Cool.
yeah. So pretty good set our group of musicians on here. A lot of like prestigious people. And this album is just a production masterpiece. I think this one really inspired me in terms of its sequencing because it's beautifully sequenced. It's sonically absolutely stunning for 1975.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
mean, songs like Sky Saw, like the bass tone on it is just so gorgeous. And you got like St. Elmo's Fire, which has one of Robert Fripp's best guitar solos, and it's just a really stunning song as a whole. I'll Come Running is one of my favorites. It's really quirky. You have Robert Fripp on there again with some great guitar, but I love Eno's vocals on that one. The song Another Green World's amazing. My favorite on the album is Becalmed, which is this really beautiful, like ambient synth track. It's absolutely stunning to listen to, and it's really emotional. I mean, he creates like a string, like an orchestra
An
with,
ensemble, like a string
yeah,
ensemble.
yeah, with the synths essentially. Um, then let's see here. I'll run through a couple more real quick, and then we get to Apollo.
Yeah,
Some
no, that's fine. We got time. No, it's fine. You're doing good. I'm gonna be looking into all this
Yeah,
myself, so big surprise there. But go on.
yeah. Then so Discreet Music's another really good ambient one. He released this one right around the time of actually the same year as Another Green World, and it was his first actual ambient album. Even though he would later have Ambient One, I think in '78, but this was his first ambient album. It's a bit quieter, and
Mhm.
just kind of like more subtle soundscapes. I mean, it's a really stunning listen. It's very chilling and stuff. It's not one that I put on all the time, but I really appreciate it a lot.
Mhm.
Oh, Before and After Science was his last vocal album. Another really good one. It's probably my least favorite of the four, but I still think it's really solid. And I mean, you have, let's see, who do we have that's different on here? Andy Frazier's on here. Um, let's see here. Oh, Mobius and Rodelius are on here. Um, of course, like Phil Collins and Percy Jones and Paul Rudolph.
Hmm.
Yeah, like Phil Manzanera again. So a lot of the same guys, but he's always adding in some different people. And I think the songwriting is really cool on here. It's probably the most electronic of the four too. It's a very interesting album. I like it a lot.
Okay.
I have a couple albums he did with uh guys from Cluster. I got Cluster and Eno, and I got After the Heat. Those are both real stunning, like electronics, ambient albums, krautrock. There's some really good Eno vocals too on After the Heat with the song Broken Head. I absolutely love that track.
Okay.
Um Ambient One, absolutely stunning.
Which I have coming. Yeah.
Yeah, 1-1 I love. You have Robert Wyatt playing the piano because at this point he was paralyzed. So he couldn't play the drums anymore. So he's playing piano on this.
Yeah. Robert
Um,
Wyatt from Soft Machine, by the way. Yeah.
yeah, and like matching mole and stuff. He's awesome.
Hmm.
But it's just a really beautiful, relaxing album. And honestly, like a lot of his ambient albums are gonna they won't stray too far. Like they
Yeah,
all do things that are different, but they have very much a sound. So I'm not going to talk about every single ambient album because it's like
yeah, yeah, they
you,
do have the basically the same blueprint in terms
yeah.
of like a roadmap. But yeah, no, I got you.
But My Life in the Bush of Ghosts is one of my favorite albums. Um, it is extremely important as it was like one of the first albums to really incorporate a ton of samples and stuff. And
Yeah.
as I've been like I've always loved this album, but I appreciate it even more now as I'm getting more into sampling myself, but not
Hmm.
sampling like other people, sampling my own instruments and stuff, just
Okay.
using the techniques and such. But one of my favorite songs on here is Regiment. It's such a cool song because you got Robert Fripp doing these really cool, like wavy type of guitar solos. It's extremely psychedelic, but then you have these like Muslim chants, I think it is. I don't remember exactly where they come from, but I think it's like from like a Muslim community. But
Mm.
they're really like haunting, cool chants. And then you have these awesome bass riffs, which I think Eno plays, and it's just like one of the coolest bass riffs I've heard. It's just a brilliantly produced song. It has cool samples in it, and the whole album is just full of like world music samples and also just like different vocal samples and stuff. It's just a really cutting edge album.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. To me was always seemed to be somebody that was always wanting to do something different than what was
yeah,
going on. They, when David Bowie was interviewed about the Berlin trilogy, the Berlin period of his work, and when he was working with he had said that what they had done was they bought these new synthesizer, you know, synthesizers to use, and they came with these handbooks. But what they did was they took the handbooks and they threw them away and just started playing with the keyboards and just
yeah,
working. And what they wanted to do was create a new language musical language in order to communicate with the audience,
yeah.
with their audience. So I think that he's just continued that really with his work.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely. I mean, that's just why he's one of my heroes. He's
yeah,
just like effortlessly like creative and groundbreaking no matter what he's doing. He's just
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
And I'll shut up now so we could talk a little bit about Apollo.
No, no,
Because
no.
this actually is my favorite of the ambient albums personally. Um, and it's Brian Eno, Daniel Lanois, who you probably know from like U2 or producing like Bob Dylan or like Robbie Robertson or whatever, like a lot of those guys.
Yeah, and
Roger Eno. Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
No,
Yeah,
I was
he's
just
just,
no, I was just gonna say, Daniel Lanois has also produced some Canadian acts like Luba and people like
yeah.
that. So yeah. No,
Good episode about Luba, by the way. I never heard of her before, but it was an
yeah,
interesting episode.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sure. And then Roger Eno is on here too. I guess the reason why this one's my favorite is I feel like the soundscapes are just like some of the most musical that he's had in the
Yeah,
ambient world. I think the production, especially having Daniel Lanois involved, I think has a bit more depth than some of the other ambient albums. I think like the guitar sounds on here are really beautiful at times. I think the synths and the bass overall are just extremely full. And I just think that for an album that's supposed to take place on the moon, it really sounds like it. Like it
yeah,
just it takes you to like a spacious type of quality with the sonics. And when I first got into this album, I had never heard anything like it, so there was just so many times where I would just be laying in bed just in a haze, just listening to this album, just like
yeah,
absolutely mind blown.
yeah. I
um
mean, I'll show you my copy here again. This is forgive the glare again, ladies and gentlemen. This is the expanded edition. So you have 23 tracks on here. You've got the original 12-track Apollo, and you've got the 11-track album of For All Mankind, which was a soundtrack to a documentary by Al Reitner, or Reiner, sorry, of the same name. And yeah, what I like about, I mean, forgive this comparison, guys, but for me, when I started listening to this, it's like, you know, it's basically stuff that you hear at a spa when you go for a massage, right? You're laying on the table, you're basically your comfort and your safety is in another person's hands, in my case, right? So you're laying on the table, you've got this music coming through the speakers that is very sort of futuristic sounding, very sort of transcendent kind of situation. And you're just sort of floating when you hear the keyboards and the keyboard passages and the textures that they're creating. It's very spacey, like so, like you're floating,
yeah,
you're floating. And then for me, the only thing that kind of anchors the music down to earth again is if it's, I believe it's Daniel Lanois' guitar playing that comes in on some of the pieces
yeah,
of music, right? So yeah, I mean, and he kind of has like a country flavor, adds a country kind of flavor to with the guitar playing. I don't know if you agree with that, but it's
at
that's what,
times.
yeah, that's what I think. It's like, okay, which adds an interesting another dynamic to it, right? So
I agree.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
think that couple songs on here that I particularly love. Weightless on side 2. I think that's
yeah,
a really beautiful one.
amazing.
Um, yeah, Deep Blue Day, Signals. I love,
Silver Morning is another
yeah,
one. What
definitely. On the opening track Under Stars, I love the bass tones and that.
amazing.
Yeah, and Ending is another fantastic one. I mean, the whole album's amazing, and it's kind of weird for me to even pick out tracks just because it really is like an experience of an album. But those are definitely some of the highlights for me. And I mean, I just think that this one was like a collaboration made in heaven. I mean, I think that all like his ambient stuff is always interesting, and he's had
Yeah,
other good collaborations like Roger Bud,
yeah.
stuff like that. I mean,
Pearl.
Pearl's an
Um,
amazing album, yeah.
yeah,
And then, I mean, yeah, he's had so many good collaborations and stuff, but I just think this one here, they hit a real sweet spot. It was a good point in time too. I just think sonically and songwriting, etc. I think it's the highlight of his ambient career that I've heard.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you, and I just want to quickly point out the album was recorded at Daniel Lanois' studio in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, in '83. Um, I think that this album could have been sequenced as like one extended track per side. It could
It
have
could
gone
have for
on.
sure.
Oh yeah, it could have gone on instead of separating the tracks. It could have gone on as an extended play on each side, and the, literally this music is fantastic. Um, I will say though that For All Mankind, I mean, I'm probably going to get the shit kicked out of me in the comments if there are any comments, but um, For All Mankind, the second disc really doesn't break any new ground in terms of the style of music that's presented. If I'm if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but I mean, I really don't hear anything that's that's different on the second disc than on Apollo. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I don't think it. I think it was all like well, because Apollo was stuff that was going to be on that soundtrack, so I think it was
yeah,
all recorded at like the same time. So yeah, I mean that's, to be honest, I don't really buy a whole lot of that bonus disc type of stuff
okay.
because yeah, but I mean I'm sure the stuff is still pretty good on there.
No,
Um,
it's good. No, it
yeah,
is really good. But I mean, I'm just saying that it's along the same lines as Apollo. There's nothing that's sort of um,
yeah, it
that's
doesn't.
that's
Yeah,
different about it, right?
it's
So
kind of
yeah,
yeah,
no, I mean,
it's more
but
of the same, really. Yeah,
it's a continuation. It's not to say that it's that the stuff that's on the second disc is bad by any means or any stretch of the imagination. It's just that
yeah,
it's the same type of music continued. So yeah,
yeah,
no, it is good though. It is really good.
yeah, and that's a
Um,
good movie too. Honestly, it's pretty stunning to watch.
it's almost like it sounds like the kind of movie that needs to be watched on like an IMAX in an IMAX situation. You know, you get the
Yeah,
big screen and you're sort of looking up like this, you know, or like you sort depending where you're sitting in the theater, that you can it's like an experience to take in kind of a thing, right? It's not a movie, it's an experience, right? Along with the music. It's they go hand in hand, right? So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that like, and I gotta tell everyone too. I mean, I first heard of this when I watched Danielle Lenoir's interview with Rick Beato. Um,
Mm.
Rick Beato mentioned it, and they talked about how they, you know, achieved these new sound textures and soundscapes. And when I heard about the album, I found it on Amazon, and it was a good price, so I got it, and I'm not disappointed in it whatsoever. So, but yeah, um, well, guys, I think that that brings us to the end of this particular episode because I mean, there's only so much you can talk about new music, right? Unless you have to go out yourself and discover it. And by the way, all of these albums that we mentioned are on Amazon. You can get them on Amazon for a good price, roughly around 15 to 17 bucks each, or I think at the maximum, like this was Apollo was like 24 for two discs. That's not bad, right? So Ryan, did you want to plug anything that you're doing? I know you're busy creating these days. A
Oh
lot.
yeah. Yes. I've definitely been very busy with my music and my record label that I'm starting. And so right now I've released two EPs so far. They're on all streaming. The first one was called the Cynthia EP. The second was called 2023 Sampler Volume 1. They're both very electronic heavy albums, a lot of dance music, some kind of progressive rock roots, some kind of funky roots at times, psychedelia, ambient
Mhm,
music,
mhm,
etc. Just really a lot of fusion. I just like to create soundscapes and I like to create atmospheres and cool songs and stuff. So
mhm,
those are up. Um, I really I've heard consistently from everybody that the second one was an improvement of the first, and I have to agree too. I like both a lot, though. I listen to them, and right now, though, I am. Oh, and also about those two, I am looking to do a physical release pretty soon, a two
Cool.
for those two EPs. I'm just kind of getting the money together, get those CDs and put together and stuff. So, but it should be pretty soon. Um, and I'm gonna just release them on one CD essentially, since they're just EPs. It'll be a nice official release though. So more on that soon. Um, but I'm working on my debut solo album right now. Um, and I have a lot of material I've been putting together for that. All different types of genres, instruments. And then I'm also producing a couple projects, and I'm also working on a collaboration as well,
That's
which
cool.
I will announce more about in the future. But yeah, things are very busy right now. I'm looking to have some more releases from my label in the next couple months. I definitely want to have some singles from the artists I'm working with,
Yeah,
and etc. But just yeah, keep an eye out. I'll be posting all over social media and stuff. You can find me on like Facebook and Instagram. Um, and then also, like I said, all the music's on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube, etc. You can find it pretty much anywhere. So check me
that's
out.
cool.
I'm
That's cool.
Ryan Gavalier.
That's cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I said at the top of this program, again, that sounds so pretentious when I say that. It really does. I don't mean it to sound that way, but these are basically episodes that we're doing here. I said at the top of the show that when you think you know all there is to know about music, that you think you know everything, you're pretty much done. So please open your minds, try and expand your experiences, and check out the music that we mentioned today of Brian Eno. The albums that we mentioned, Apollo, etc. They're all available on Amazon, Discogs, eBay, or go to your local record store. And for those of you whose record stores do carry a large back catalog supply, please check them out. And just try something new. It may not be in your comfort zone, may not be something that you're used to listening to, but you know what? What do you have to lose? Nothing. So please take the time, invest, and hopefully you'll like it. So, and please check out Ryan Gavalier on YouTube and all the streaming sites that he says that his albums are available on. He's a fantastic artist. He's going to go places. Believe me.
Thank
Take
you.
my word for it. Invest the time and check him out. I swear to God, you will not be disappointed. So for Ryan Gavalier, I'm Armando Venditti. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Put your comments down there, down below. Let me know what you think of Brian Eno, or let us know. Do you like him? Do you not like him? Do you think he's overrated, underrated, what have you? Click like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. I think Ryan and I are going to talk after the taping about maybe doing some possible other shows. You never know. Although,
Yeah.
with the work he's doing, I may not be able to nag him or nab him to do many shows from now on, but you never know, right? So, okay, guys, have a good day, and look after yourselves and one another. And I will see you very soon. Bye for now.